Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Rosh Hashanah, pages 29 through 35, Chavtet through Lamed Hey. We are told, Cheresh shotev katan, ein motziin et harabim yidei chovatam, that there are certain categories of people who cannot help others fulfill their ritual obligations. In this case, we're talking about Tkiyat Shofar, the blowing of the shofar, but it applies to other commandments as well. So, three categories of people are generally exempt. One is cheresh, the deaf-mute. They don't have the mental capacity, at least according to Talmudic times, it was thought that a deaf-mute did not have the mental capacity to perform mitzvot. Shoteh, a deranged person who is really crazy and we can't hold them accountable for their deeds. And a katan, a minor below the age of bar bat mitzvah. These people are personally exempt and therefore they cannot fulfill the obligation for others. Zeh haklal, this is the general principle. Anyone who is personally not obligated cannot fulfill the mitzvah for others. Daf Lamed 30. Barishona, in the olden days, the lulav was taken all 7 days of Sukkot in the temple. But in the provinces, in the Medina, it was only taken 1 day, namely the first day, because it says, "Natorah l'kachtem lachem bayom harishon," the first day. Mishecharav Beit HaMikdash. But once the temple was destroyed, hitkin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, she'lulav nital Medina shiva zech l'mikdash. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made a rabbinical enactment that the lulav will be taken all 7 days of the holiday, even in the provinces, even beyond the temple in Jerusalem, as a remembrance to the good old days of the Beit HaMikdash. Now, this is not entirely true in the sense that it's always taken all 7 days. Actually, it's not taken on Shabbat. So it's really 6 out of 7. However, there was some permissibility of taking the lulav on Shabbat if it was the first day, although this is something we no longer do. Lamed Aleph, 31. V'od zot hitkin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made a further enactment. She'afilu rosh beit din b'chol makom, shelo yuhu edim holchim elo makom avad. That it doesn't matter where the head of the court happens to be located at any one time. Witnesses for testimony concerning Rosh Chodesh will arrive at the location of the court and offer their testimony there. They don't have to chase after where the Rosh Beit Din might happen to be. Now, this is an important point because the leading rabbis of Jewry in Talmudic times would often go traveling on official purposes for tzedakah collection or for influencing Jewish communities abroad, and so it was necessary to rule that the Makom Havad is the key place, not the location temporarily of the Rosh Beit Din. Lamed Bet 32. Amar Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva is now going to give us his version of what the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah should look like in terms of the order of the brachot. Omer Avot, you say the first blessing, Avot, which is Magen Avraham. Gvurot, which is the blessing of Machayei Metim. Ukedushat Hashem, and the blessing of Kedushat Hashem, the sanctity of God's name, which is ordinarily Hakel HaKadosh, but on the high holiday season is Hamelech HaKadosh. V'kolel malchiotim kedushat hayom v'tokeya. And then he says that we combine the sanctity of the day, the topic, the bracha that talks about the topic of the holiday, with recitation of verses about God's kingship, the malchiyot, and then you blow the shofar, tokeya. Zichronot, you say verses about remembrance, v'tokeya, and blow the shofar. Shofarot, verses about the shofar, v'tokeya, and blow the shofar. V'yomer, and then you say avodah, the blessing of v'techezena inenu b'shuvcha tzom v'rachamim. Hoda'ah, the blessing of Modim, and Birkat Kohanim, the blessing of Sim Shalom, which is inclusive of the Duchening, the priestly blessing. There is another Tanaic opinion, actually there are several other Tanaic opinions about the sequence of the blessings on Rosh Hashanah Musaf. However, the Rabbi Akiva version is the one that we actually follow. The reason why there are so many opinions is because everyone agreed that there were 9 blessings total. The 3 usual beginning blessings and the 3 usual ending blessings, and there are supposed to be 3 in between. However, there are 4 topics. There's the Malchiot, Zichronot, and Shofarot, which are 3 topics, but there's also Kedushat Hayom, the sanctity of the day. So how do you fit essentially 10 topics into 9 blessings? And that was the challenge. Lamed Gimel 33. Kishem sheshliach tzibur chayav, kach kol yachid v'yachid chayav. Just as the precentor, the cantor, the leader of the service, is obligated to say the Shmona Esrei, so too is every individual obligated to do so. However, of course, that's assuming a person has the capacity to do so. They have the ability. They know what they're doing. If they are incompetent liturgically, then that's the whole purpose of the repetition of the Shemona Esrei, is to satisfy the obligation for those who couldn't do it on their own. But we're talking about now those who could do it on their own, but might choose not to rely upon the cantor. So the Tanna Kama is saying, just as the Chazan has to daven, so too the average individual has to daven, and they can't rely upon the cantor. Rabbi Gamliel, Omer Shatz, Rabbi Dechovatan, whereas Gamliel says, no. Even if you are liturgically competent, you can rely upon the Chazan to satisfy your obligation. Lamed Daled. Adkin Rabbi Abahu b'Keisari T'kiyah Shlosha Shvarim Torah U'Tkiyah. That Rabbi Abahu in Caesarea enacted a rule that we have to blow 30 blasts of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. That under Torah law, you're supposed to blow 9 blasts of the shofar. 3 teruahs, and each teruah has a tekiah in front of it and after it. So 3 sets of tekiah, tekiah, 3 times 3 equals 9. That's the basic Torah obligation. However, it was realized over the years that there are 3 different versions of the teruah. Is it what we call teruah, the 9 staccato notes? Is it what we call shvarim, 3 medium length notes? Or is it a combination, the shvarim teruah? So there, because of uncertainty about what it is, Rabbi Abahu enacted a rule: do all 3 versions. So 3 times 3 equals 27, plus one of those is a Shavaim Torah, which is a compound. So therefore, 27 plus 3 equals 30. 30 blasts of the shofar. Lamed Hey, the last page of the Masechet. A person should always order their prayers and then pray, meaning they should review the text of the prayers before they recite it, lest they make a blunder. So the Talmud says it's logical to say this rule applies to things you say infrequently, like the davening of the high holidays or the davening of the holidays. But as for the everyday service, this is unnecessary because you're already familiar with it to the extent that there's no need for preparation. Everyone have a great week.